Bienvenido and welcome to Inside Grand Prix. Today, everything on the Spanish Grand Prix in Barcelona, including, of course, local hero Fernando Alonso.
I'm here to win.
And we take a seat in the Formula One cockpit.
It's the small, thin piece of carbon.
But first, hola, Barcelona.
Welcome to Barcelona.
Barcelona, capital of Catalonia, Spain's second biggest city. A definite highlight, the Sagrada Familia, the world-famous church designed by Gaudi and to this day unfinished, in a city that never stands still. On the streets and along the lanes, pulsating life.
I really enjoy Barcelona. I think it's a great city, very nice people, you know, so you have great restaurants, you have great hotels, you have, you know, great shoppings to enjoy the place as well. It's nice.
A global city that simply combines it all. On the one hand, fast living and hip, on the other, extremely enticing sights. The locals have their own unique rhythm, ideally adapted to the hot temperatures. At midday, a siesta. At night, a party through to the small hours of the morning. The city obtains a whole further significance through its sport. More than a club, FC Barcelona. Superstars such as Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez are admired around the globe, as is Spanish football in general. The Spanish league has 5 to 6 top teams, not only Real Madrid and FC Barcelona, teams like Atletico Madrid, who won the championship last year. The overall competitiveness is very high in Spain. The Spaniards are champions too on motorbikes. Higher, faster, further. The MotoGP is based here, and a bull ring has also been used before now for action on 2 wheels. All of Spain used to be crazy about motorbikes. Then Alonso came along, won his first driver's title, and suddenly Formula One was the top sport there. And as a driver, you can feel that at every test session and every race. Everyone recognizes you. There's so much emotion and knowledge here in Barcelona in Spain that it's simply fun to go there.
Dass es einfach Spaß macht, dorthin zu gehen.
For the last 14 years, the Grand Prix has been run on the Circuit de Catalunya, to the north of Barcelona. The race consists of 66 laps. Due to the varying corners, the circuit is also seen as a yardstick in terms of aerodynamic performance. Just one of the reasons it's often said that if you're quick in Barcelona, you'll be quick anywhere. And now, a fiery Spaniard who's losing steam. Fernando Alonso in Barcelona, a record holder, the only winner from the third row of the grid, the only Spanish winner ever, and the most points here as well. With 120 on his home circuit, he's even ahead of Schumi. Few drive for as long or as well, but something's eating away at him.
When you left one place that you feel that you didn't finish what you were there for, you want to come back and you want to finish that job.
Finishing what you've started, the ambition of a true pro.
Fernando is the truest of the true professionals in the game, and I cannot see any tiny little bit of weakness in his performance. So for me, he is super top-notch.
Fernando is a very experienced driver, a very complete driver, as you would expect from someone that's had so much experience in the sport, but also a double world champion.
In 2005 and 6, he broke Schumacher's grip and stole the King's throne. El Matador became world champion, waking Spain from a Formula One sleep.
I never thought to be 2 times world champion in Formula One, and you know, I knew that the best drivers in the world are here in Formula One, are very, very complex to win a title. You need to be extremely lucky with the car, with the drivability, with everything. So, you know, it was difficult to think and to realize that I was winning.
Up close with his idol, 10 years ago off the track, now on it for Carlos Sainz Jr., Alonso has been a lifelong hero.
I've been following Fernando for many years. He was one of the main reasons for me to suddenly have the dream of becoming a Formula One driver after watching him winning his first 2 titles.
In 2007, his idol was in the McLaren Mercedes cockpit, the season bringing Alonso 3rd place in the championship and the greatest bout of mudslinging in Formula One history. Alpha males don't tolerate competition. With rookie Hamilton and boss Ron Dennis, there was infighting and trouble. Alonso's honour was hurt, and the hot-blooded Spaniard took revenge, supplying the key evidence in the espionage affair. The result for McLaren, the biggest fine ever, $100 million, and no constructors' title. The trust was gone too. Alonso left and only really came back with Ferrari. In 5 years with the team, he was championship runner-up 3 times, but couldn't beat Vettel. Nor did any sunny times follow, and at the end of 2014, Fernando even made way for the German. Then, a surprise. With 8 years of water under the bridge, the return of the banished son to McLaren, significantly matured.
Well, this time with McLaren there are few differences. Obviously, I'm older, I'm more mature, I'm more ready for this challenge.
There's been much media speculation about Fernando and his relationship with us last time, but I think we can confidently put that to one side and say we're just here to get the job done.
Getting the job done is what the now 33-year-old wants to do too. McLaren Honda is to be the crowning climax. Previously Senna Prost, now Alonso Button. A childhood dream comes true.
You know, I grew up as a child watching the McLaren Honda domination in Formula One. And now I have this big opportunity and this big privilege to be back with them and to start from zero this new era.
Starting from zero, the car at best unreliable and slow, at worst dangerous. During winter testing in Barcelona, a shock. Alonso crashes and is hurt. He doesn't start race 1. His car doesn't finish race 2. In China and Bahrain, at least he crosses the line. The 2-time world champion, relegated to being the development driver.
I'm here to win, but not to win the first day. I'm here to win in a long-term relationship. So if we need to go through a period of understanding and a period of learning how this new era of Formula One is working, I'm here for that, and I'm committed to work together with the team to wait for our moment.
12th in China, 11th in Bahrain. Tangible progress. If it continues like this, his home race could bring the Matador his first points of the season. No matter how strong you are, they're stronger. G-forces. Formula One, a sport of extremes. On the ground, nobody is subjected to greater forces. F1 drivers live at the limit. Driving, a fight against physics.
It's hard from the outside to, sometimes people watch an onboard camera of us and they can see, things are happening very quickly, but what they don't see or experience is the G-forces and the feelings that we're feeling through our neck, through our, core, our back.
These forces are measured in G. 1 G equates to the Earth's normal gravitational force, to which we're all exposed. Whenever a body's speed or direction changes significantly, this force gets multiplied. At the start, the driver is subjected to up to 1.5 G. If he weighs 70 kilos, 105 kilos press him into his seat. Braking, a totally different caliber.
And I think we measured it recently in the simulator, that it took a little over 2 seconds from 300 to 0, which is an amazing deceleration. And the forces are so high that probably if you wouldn't be used to driving an F1 car and you would get in, you wouldn't be able to hold your head during a braking event and you'd smack into the steering wheel.
The forces are that great, including on the Circuit de Catalunya. The hardest braking point there, right ahead of the first corner. After the long straight, the driver has to brake down hard, decelerating by 210 kilometers an hour over just 104 meters inside 1.11 seconds. The power release, 2,422 kilowatts, exposing the driver to 5.6 G. Instead of 70, 300 kilos briefly pull at his belts. By way of comparison, if when doing 280 kilometers per hour, the driver merely lifts his foot off the throttle, it's like emergency braking in a road car. The toughest part, however, is cornering. The strain up to 6G. The driver's 70 kilos then quickly press with 420 kilos onto the side wall. And that's just the peak strain. It's high permanently.
Jetzt kommen dann noch Fliehkräfte dazu bis 4,5, 5 G.
On top of that comes centrifugal forces up to 4.5 to 5 G, the pressure of having to avoid any mistakes, of concentrating for every thousandth of a second, plus it's very hot in the car too, so it certainly is an elite sport.
Schon eine Spitzensportart.
No adversity can be allowed to matter. The limit of capabilities for the untrained quickly reached. However, if you've got the necessary cash, the full Formula One feeling is available to amateurs too, G-forces included.
I think a lot of people that watch Grand Prix, they think, oh, the guys are sitting there just driving, I could do that. It's very difficult. Fighting the G-forces, particularly with the neck, is very hard. When we are driving through a corner, as your viewers know, 4.5 to 5 Gs. Under braking, 5 Gs, and the eyeballs actually start to bulge out of the head, and tears drop down and fall on the inside of the visor. That's how violent the braking is. That's pretty hard.
Hard indeed for hobby racers. And for the pros, it's harder still, for up to 2 hours at a time every race. The weak point, the human body. All that can help is tough training.
The neck muscles are one of the most important muscle groups when driving a Formula One car. So I have to make sure that they're in top form.
For top performance, lap after lap. In Barcelona alone, it's over 5G in 6 corners. Spain, one of the toughest races of the season. Welcome to the social net, where there have been photos, fails, and fledgling drivers. An outlook for Hamilton, an insight for the fans, poses from Lewis, and Roscoe too. He sits for the camera while his master takes a spin, in style in the Silver Arrows, with racing icon Sterling Moss. New fodder for the fans, Raikkonen's wife Mintu shows more of the cute next-generation Finn. Heartwarming too, the Sauber team, fans included, with support from them in the shape of cake. With fans like these, winning should be a piece of cake. Reason to celebrate for the Schumacher family. On his first Formula 4 weekend, 16-year-old Mick gets his first win and is crowned Best Rookie. Congratulations, Schumi Jr. A fail for Ferrari as UPS deliver a phallic problem. Their logo on the cars was to consist of fans' photos, but oops, what looks like a willy slipped through the checking process. The result, Vettel and Raikkonen drive in China with loons on the logo. There was little mockery online, with most people finding it funny. Strong stuff on the net and strong on the track. With Ferrari are quick, reliable and going easy on the tyres. 4 podiums, second in team standings, and Mercedes chaser number 1.
Nobody has expected them to be that good, and with Vettel and Kimi being absolutely on the pace, this was clearly a positive surprise of the first 4 races.
Team boss Maurizio Arrivabene and the Scuderia have done great work, changing many key positions in the rebuilding process, making Jock Clear chief engineer, for example. Fans can find all main personnel biographies and technical data summarized in Who Works in Formula One, a handy reference book containing over 1,700 Formula One contacts of season 2015, ideal for any in-depth offline research. A short break to recharge the batteries. Then the world champion explains the Circuit de Catalunya and the secrets to sitting correctly. Don't go away. On Inside Grand Prix, we now continue flat out a piece of Spanish motorsport history, racing in Terramar. But first, the Circuit de Catalunya. Lewis Hamilton gives us the lowdown.
Barcelona, a great place to start our European season. It's a beautiful city, the weather's always good, that's why we always do our winter testing there. And then, you know, you've got great architecture within the city, so it's a very young, kind of sexy city. You know, it's quite vibrant. I quite like it. The racing is tough. It's really tough because again, it's hot, but it's so physical. So we can check out on the simulator turn 1, 2, and 3 is probably the most difficult part of the circuit. Getting the right braking point into turn 1 and clipping the apex and powering through 2. But positioning yourself perfectly for 3, so you could try and take it, you know, as fast as you can. And when your car's good, you can get it flat out. When you're going through the right, your head just wants to go to the left through the G-force.
Braking into turn 4, you go quite deep. Depending on the wind direction, you can understeer or you have a pretty good front end. Turn 5, the track kind of dips a little bit at the apex, quite long. Again, important exit down to turn 7. Down to turn 10, which is heavy braking, really tough on the rear tyres. Important to hit the apex. And then once you get the apex, it's really important. Kind of make a V out of turn 12. Again, the last few corners are pretty difficult because the rear tyres are so hot. Last chicane, it's very difficult to get the car to turn in there without having too much oversteer. But the exit's really important now. The chicane, flat out onto the straight and onto DRS, and that's a lap.
It's a very, very demanding circuit for the car. That's why we test it there, because it's a perfect place to test the aerodynamics. It's tough, particularly in the race from lap to lap. When you do 70-odd laps there, it's incredibly physical. Definitely one that I really enjoy, and now I've had the taste of winning last year. I want to try and do it in an even better style this year, so keep your fingers crossed for me.
A look now at the championship standings. Among the drivers, Lewis Hamilton has further extended his lead. Kimi Raikkonen moves up to 4th place. In the team standings, Red Bull climb up to 4th, but the gap to the top 3 remains huge. In Bahrain, Kimi broke the silver car's dominance, and the battle for the DHL Fastest Lap Award is now properly on. The Finn also recorded the quickest pit stop in Bahrain, so the Scuderia Ferrari have now done the fastest tyre change 3 times. Now, please take your place, the Formula One seat. It's not the most comfortable of jobs, pinching here, squeezed in there. In the cockpit, barely any room. Top shape essential for driver and seat.
The seat is what keeps the driver in contact with the car. It's the small, thin piece of carbon that separates the driver from the chassis he's driving at the time.
The driver's distance to the ground scarcely more than a centimetre. If the car touches, sparks start to fly. You've seen the car's noses, they go up a bit, so the pedals are then a bit higher. This is the lowest point, and then here it's a sort of lying position. The steering wheel is then here over your legs, very close, and as I'm steering, I'm constantly rubbing them here. And the limit to how I lie is what I can see. I always play around with that a bit. I try to get down as low as possible, but eventually you get to the point where you can no longer see where you're going, and then I have to come back up a bit. sitting correctly, a dynamic process, adjustments several times a year, and definitely when changing team. New car, new seat, each a one-off. Per driver, between 3 and 6 of these carbon fiber works of art.
Well, obviously, changing team, there's a lot of different things. You know, not so much about the driving position, because obviously it's custom-made, so you can ask for things that you like.
Preferences and shape different from driver to driver. The procedure always the same.
In my hands, I have my race seats, and it's made of carbon fiber. It's really strong and light material. We do the mold in the car before the season starts in January. So we sit in the car, we put some foam in, the foam comes up and gets hard, and that's how we get the mold, and then it will be finely tuned for every driver. The whole process actually takes many weeks. So once they get the first mold, we adjust it to fit perfectly, because you really want tight, snug fits, because once you drive the car around the corners with all the G-forces, you really don't want to move around. So that's why really the only thing we have to hold up and which is moving around is the head.
Bottas, himself sorely afflicted. The fit wasn't perfect. The result, backache, and right at the start of the season, 2 weeks of no racing. Even the world champion has seat problems. In China, it got too hot under Hamilton's rear. The seat was inadequately insulated. As well as comfort, another ultra-important issue here is safety.
Of course, it has to have the safety harnesses on it, so when you're in, you know, if you have a crash, God forbid, they can just plug in these straps and pull you out in one piece with the seat.
Inside the car, there's no room, certainly not for mistakes. Everything's got to sit right, including the driver. And now, driving on a long-forgotten circuit. A stone's throw from Barcelona, across the Parc Natural del Garraf. Cracked traces of Catalonian motor racing history, the Autodromo de Terramar. Where today time stands still, the spirit of a new full-throttle dawn once prevailed. The first Spanish Grand Prix was run here in Terramar. You can relive history here. You feel as though you've gone back in time. It's very special. Built in 1922, the oval circuit was opened by King Alphonse XIII in 1923. At the start of the last century, the races were an absolute pleasure. In terms of motorsport, you have to say that Spain was one of the leading countries back then. There were 60 motorcycle brands and 40 car makers. Driving on the track, all that counted was the driver's skill. Today's circuits have lost their human element. In the 20s, the people had to push-start their cars. Today, that's unimaginable. You can't turn back time, but you can revive the old days with 2 Spanish motor racing heroes. Carlos Sainz, father of today's Formula 1 driver, and DTM driver Miguel Molina. To be honest, I was totally surprised. I know a lot about Spanish motor racing history, but I had no idea that anything like this had ever been built here. And that, in effect, Formula 1 at that time was staged on this oval. I've read a few stories about this track, but never had the opportunity to come here. The bank corners are very impressive. I'm already looking forward to thundering around here like the drivers from the 20s. It'll be fantastic. I think it's going to be very tricky due to all the potholes. These chicanes didn't used to be here. We're probably going to have to zigzag a lot. Back then they could simply go full throttle straight ahead. It's going to be a real challenge. The lap records here are already several years old. We'll just have some fun and give it our best shot. DTM driver Miguel Molina goes first on the oval circuit. The track is 2,000 meters long. The two banked corners 60 and 90 degrees steep. I'm very intrigued to see what it feels like. I've never driven on an oval track before, and certainly not one with a 90-degree banking. It must be incredible. Two-time rallying world champion Carlos Sainz is perhaps Spain's greatest motorsport legend. The lap record of 45.8 seconds with an average speed of 157 kilometers per hour dating from 1923 is one he's unable to beat, but to sense and savor. It's a piece of wonderful, living motorsport history, a relic from a time when drivers were driven by the same passion as we are today. After 1932, Terramar was largely forgotten. Today, the legend has been resurrected, loud and laid back. Fascinating full-throttle laps from Spain's earliest days of motorsport. That was Inside Grand Prix on the F1 race in Spain. We'll see you again in princely Monaco. Thanks for watching and all the best until next time here on Inside Grand Prix.